What's going on? Let me send out some links here. Hey, let me just send one more to Instagram. Okay. All right. So, wanted to hop on, give my thoughts on House of the Dragon, the latest episode. Thought it was a good episode. Wasn't my favorite episode by any stretch. It's probably towards the bottom. Maybe like episode 2 and 8, probably my least two favorite. Which, on the scale for this show, how much I like this show, how much I love this show. I think it's the best show on TV, and I don't even think it's close. So when I say it's my least favorite, that's still putting it in a category where it's like it was a good episode. I just thought it was more flawed than some of the previous episodes. Also, too, coming off of episode 8, it was going to be hard to follow that up because that episode was so damn good. But I thought it was more flawed than the typical episodes. They deviated from the source more, and they not so much they in the way they deviated from the source. It wasn't so much that they made some like dramatic changes that alter the trajectory of the story. It was more like they cut out a couple of scenes and they added some other scenes that weren't in the book. So cut out a few that weren't that were in the book that were mentioned. They didn't show, and they added some scenes, especially the last scene. That was completely added, not from the book at all. That was I don't even I have to go back through and when I do like more of a detailed notes on each episode, because once this season's over, once we get through next week, we're gonna do a rewatch, and we're gonna go through each episode, and we'll do a deep dive, kind of cover what happened in the episode, but also how it compares to the source. And and there's multiple different interpretations when you're going through the Fire and Blood for this particular time period. The guy that's writing the book, he's writing in world, writing the history book in world for Westeros and the Targaryen reign. And so when he's writing the book and he's recounting this period of time, he's relying on three different sources. And sometimes those sources agree with each other, sometimes they're wildly different. So the show is obviously they're just picking one path and going down it. Sometimes they're going on their own path and they're not even going with any of the three accounts that we know of. But it's like it's an unreliable history. We don't know exactly what happened, and that's kind of the show's taking the liberty of putting forth what they believe happened, what they think is going to make the most entertaining show. And I think they've done a great job, and I think they've been very loyal to the source. It's clear that they're trying to bring the story to life, and they have there's some creative differences. Obviously, they're doing things. It's a different medium, so they do some things differently. I'm assuming they believe it improves the narrative, but not a lot of major shifts from the books to the show. There's just some differences, but as far as like if you're wanting to call it like a faithful adaptation, this is really faithful. But when we go through and we do the deep dive, I'll go through and I'll cover kind of what the source said, what the three different sources said for that time period versus how the show covered the scenes. And I want to also, like in the first episode, kind of give the backdrop of what led to Viserys and kind of what paved the way for what we're seeing now, and also kind of give some just kind of background information on the Targaryens and the Valerians and that kind of stuff. So we'll do a deep dive on the show completely once it's over. But I'm for the most part, I think they've knocked it out of the park. And this episode, I thought a lot of it was really good, and then there was other parts that I some of the logic didn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought they could have. It seemed like it was a little rushed. Maybe like they would have been better if they had an extra episode this season, and this was split into 2 episodes. But and then kind of fill out each episode. It just felt like some of the scenes needed more context, especially the end. I mean, there needed to be more to kind of tie it up to make it make sense. But overall, it's really good, and I really like this opening here. So we'll just kind of jump in and go through it. Like the opening here, when they kind of go through the halls, like after his death, and they're showing the wind. It's put you back in that setting from the last episode, where you're just coming off of his death, and it's obviously pretty. It's a sad end for Viserys. Probably the best kind of ending you're gonna get in this world. Dying in your bed of old age, obviously, in horrible pain, but more or less got old and died. But yeah, and then get this kid bringing the news to her kind of assistant, basically. I forget what they call the little pages and those, the servants or whatever. They bring the information to her. She's obviously working for the White Worm, who's not my favorite in this episode. Like I'm not huge on her performance compared to other people's performances in the show. But she's working for the White Worm, and she brings the information to Alicent, who's immediately going to Otto, and their goal is obviously to keep the information as under wraps as possible. And I like Alicent in this episode, where she's sitting there, she's kind of playing it up like she doesn't want to do the bad thing. She doesn't want to, she doesn't want to go overboard. But it's like, yeah, but you're taking the crown from Rhaenyra, so let's not get it twisted. You're committing treason, so you could be like, oh, I'm so above, killing Rhaenyra. I don't want to kill Rhaenyra and go after them. And yeah, but you're stealing her crown. You're committing treason. This is not going to be something that can just go unanswered. You're being very, very naive in this episode. But not a problem with the writing. Just the character in general is being very naive in this episode. But Otto, he's being more cold-blooded and ruthless, but he's also being more, logical. Like, if you're going to steal the crown from Rhaenyra, you can't let her live. She's got to go. I mean, you can't have people who are that powerful with dragons, lots of dragons, who are able to usurp to gather up an opposing force and wage a war against you for the crown. You have to eliminate that threat, and probably should have eliminated, if they were going to go this path, they probably should have eliminated her sooner. And obviously, there's complications because of Daemon and because of Viserys. If he's around, if they go and kill Rhaenyra, it could backfire. But now that she's dead, Otto's being the most logical in that he's saying, look, let's keep it under wraps, but let's go take care of her before she knows what happens. And not doing that is just is idiotic. If you're going to take the crown, and go full force at it. Don't if you're going to pussyfoot around, you're going to create a catastrophe. and that's obviously Otto's position on it. And so we get the council here, and this is divergent a little bit from the books. If now if I remember correctly, Kristen Cole is already Lord Commander by this point. Fairly certain, like 99% certain that he's already Lord Commander in this scene. Beesbury does stand up and protest and push back against the rest of the council, and he's largely the only one really offering any kind of resistance. And the accounting of what happened after that is it differs between the different sources. Like you have one says Kristen Cole kills him, and then you have another where they throw him in the cells. Either way, the dude dies, and they get rid of him. But it's interesting the way they do this, because this guy, it pits. It starts. I think what they were looking for is to have some clear pushback and clear people who are showing the, because they're in King's Landing. Obviously, this is Alicent's side for the most part. She's had a lot of time, and Otto has had a lot of time to kind of put their pieces in play with Rhaenyra out of the picture at Dragonstone. So I think what the show is trying to do is they wanted to have some kind of resistance that would show that that we're moving towards a civil war, so that you have the Lord Commander who's resisting. You have Beesbury resisting. Then you also have one of the twins resisting, of the two brothers that are both in the Kingsguard. One of them that goes and gets Rhaenys, and they go and they dip out. But I think that's what the reason for that was. They wanted those kind of characters to offer the juxtaposition versus how much control they've already had over the house, but they still wanted to show that there are people in the realm and that are going to push back against this. They're not just going to roll over, and it's not going to be a position where Rhaenyra and Daemon are largely on their own. There's a faction of people who are going to resist, and I think they're using the Lord Commander and the other King's Guardmen, who are, neither of these situations are in the book. The one of the twins brothers, he's already in Dragonstone at this point. Like there's Kingsguard that were with Rhaenyra at Dragonstone, at least one, at least him. And then obviously, and like I said, Kristen Cole was the Lord Commander, so this guy doesn't even exist at this point in the books. But I think they're using them kind of as a placeholder to show that because they're isolating on just King's Landing in this episode, I think they're utilizing these characters as to show the resistance, that there is going to be a problem, that there are going to be people that are not going to just bend the knee. And so I think that's mainly what they were using. And I think, that they accomplish what they set out to do with that. But you get Alicent sitting there saying that, his last words were to put Aegon on the crown. Obviously, she's reading into that what she wants to read into that. That's not what he was saying. And and I love Lannister over here. Then we may proceed now with full assurance. Such a kiss ass. No, got my Ice Cube. Not wearing a shirt with just ice on it. It was a good day. Ice Cube shirt. But yeah, I like he's such a kiss ass, and and obviously it's not just so much a kiss ass. It's also who's going to benefit him. Who winning benefits him the most. And if Alicent wins and Aegon wins, that's going to be to his benefit given his current position. And you're going to see, it's like they do a good job in the book of, they make it a little bit about like, do we want a woman to sit the throne who's got bastards that would be coming up behind her. And they have some resistance against that. But there's also the fact that it's largely, if Aegon wins, does that benefit me? Or if Rhaenyra wins, does that benefit me? The sides are largely dependent on what they're getting out of the deal, which is realistic. I mean, they can make all the pushback against, do we want a woman sitting on the throne? That's not largely what it's about. There's an element of that, but it's largely about who benefits. How are you going to benefit me? What am I going to get out of this deal if Aegon's in power or if Rhaenyra's in power? And that's a large part of the resistance, and it's very Game of Thrones esque, a Song of Ice and Fire, where there's a lot of gray with all the decision making and all the characters, and then you have some notable exceptions, some people that are just full on evil, and you got like Larry Strong. I mean, that guy's just creepy as shit. And then you also have characters that are good, like Beesbury and the Lord Commander, and you have the other Kingsguard, where they're making their decisions based on duty and honor. So there's a nice mix. Obviously, most of the characters are gray. It's not very black and white, but then there is enough black and white to offer some contrast between the different characters, so it's not stale. Obviously, you don't want to have like everybody is a gray character. There's no good people. There's no evil people. That's not realistic either. I think they do a nice balance where there's enough black and white to to justify having the vast majority of people kind of gray morality characters, which is more realistic as far as the real world is concerned. So you have these guys, they're getting their setup. They're going to make their move. And again, Allison is just not being realistic. If you're going to take the throne, Rhaenyra has to go. What you're talking about, Daemon or Rhaenyra both have dragons. Jace, Luke, and Joffrey all have dragons. Then they have two other sons, and Aegon the Younger and Viserys. And then you also have, she's pregnant. So, I mean, and now you also have Rhaenys Targaryen joining their side. And so that's another dragon. And then I can't remember if at least one of her kids has a dragon as well. So, I mean, that's a lot of dragons. What is that? You got two there. You got her three kids. That's five. Her, and that's seven. Plus the two young ones. And you have a potential of like 8 to 10 dragons, but just in that family. So that's not a threat you can just leave. I mean, Aegon took over the entire kingdom with 3 dragons. And so Aegon the Conqueror, I mean, you can't leave a family with 8 to 10 dragons that you usurped and then you're not going to take them out. That's just stupid. You have to take them out. You have to. If you're going to do what you're doing, you have to. Otherwise, bend the knee, give it to Rhaenyra, and hope she doesn't take you out, which is a dangerous risk. Because the same thing from Rhaenyra's perspective. If she's sitting the Iron Throne and you have Aegon, who, there's a large segment of the realm that would benefit if Aegon was king, that would be pushing for that, and he's got dragons. His wife's got dragons. He has a couple kids with his wife. His brother has a dragon. His other brother has a dragon. They haven't shown Darren. Darren supposedly is in Old Town. He'll be in the second season, but he's the youngest of Viserys' boys. He's got a dragon as well. There's a lot of dragons in this mix, and so you either had to accept that Rhaenyra is going to be the queen and find a way to make peace and find a way to make yourself not a threat, or one or the other has got to take each other out, because the realm is too split. It's there's too much of too many people would benefit from one or the other ruling, and they have counter desires, counter benefits, and so that's going to cause a split when that many powerful people have that many differences. And so she's being a little unrealistic here, with thinking that they're going to just, offer Rhaenyra peace and say, "Hey, we're taking your throne," and she's not going to do anything about it. Come on, get real. But yeah, and then so Criston Cole takes out Beesbury, and one of the questions would be like, why would they give him the Lord Commander? Make him Lord Commander after he just murders a guy. Obviously it didn't look like he was intending to slam his head in there. It's more of a manslaughter, but still, it's murder. And they give him the Lord Commander, but why? Because that's to their benefit. Everything they're doing is to their benefit right now. This isn't about where we're worried about morality at this point. Everybody sitting at that table is not worried about the morality of the situation. They're like, we need to secure power, and Criston Cole becoming Lord Commander is to their benefit. That's why they're doing it. I mean, it makes perfect sense from their perspective. If you're judging it based off of what's the moral thing to do, well, yeah, he just murdered that guy. He should go to jail. But they're committing treason. They should all be executed. So, I mean, you're splitting hairs at this point if you're going to start judging crimes. They're all committing crimes. This very meeting would be treason. So this would get them all put to death. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that they don't get rid of Criston Cole. But yeah, this Lord Commander bows out, and that obviously moves Criston Cole up. And like I said, he was already in that position in the books. That's kind of where they get him in there. At this point, I think the reason they did it that way. The reason they did it that way was to have a set figure in the Kingsguard that is just kind of recognizable face, because I can't remember if they don't do a lot with the Kingsguard as far as fleshing out those characters in the story. It's largely you have the two twins and you have Criston Cole and you have some mention of names, but they're not like spelling out what's going on with all these Kingsguard people. So I think they're just in this show, instead of having just like a random Kingsguard guy just wearing the outfit where there's no real mention of his name or anything. It's a more recognizable face that holds some consistency throughout at least the season. But if I remember right, the character he's playing has probably already died by this point in the books, and I think probably like of old age or maybe in a little skirmish or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. When we go back through it and I go and take notes, I'll pull up the fate of all those kind of characters and kind of go through what exactly happened to them, where they're different in the books, that kind of stuff. But yeah, then she goes to her daughter Helena, and you got your father. There's a beast beneath the boards. Which is obviously a tie back to. It's a tie-in to what happens at the end of the episode. They've been positioning her as a dreamer, where she can kind of predict the future in these kind of vague ways, but that's just another example of her predicting the future. But yeah, and we find out, Aegon comes on. She lets them know their dad is dead. Aegon stepping up, or Aemon stepping in there, and then they don't have Aegon. They don't know where Aegon's at, which is directly from the books. And in the books, I think they find him. There's multiple sources. One of the sources says they found him in a brothel, and it was pretty brutal. He's a pretty depraved guy, and this scene of like the Otto sending out his guys to go get him versus Alicent sending out her crew to go get him. That's completely from the show. That's not from the books. I mean, obviously they send someone out to go find Aegon, but I don't. They don't really talk about like there's a race between Otto and Alicent, and there's a competition to get them. It was just kind of a added thing in the show. Gets you a little time with Kristen Cole and Aemond and the two brothers, kind of developing them a bit. But and then you have Rhaenys here getting locked in her room, and she is, unless I'm mistaken, she is not in King's Landing during this time. I'm almost certain she was not in King's Landing when this went down. I don't see why she would be in King's Landing. Her husband is grievously wounded. You would think she would have headed back to Driftmark when everybody else left. When Rhaenyra and Daemon and their family left, you would assume she would have left as well to go back to Driftmark to see to her husband. I thought they mishandled her character, and again, I think it was in the service of showing the other side and the resistance that is obviously going to be there. I think that's what they're using her and the Lord Commander and the other twin. I think that's largely what their position is in this episode, is to show that opposite side, that there is going to be resistance. Rhaenyra is not going to be alone. It's just the logic behind her decision making, when you just kind of go back through it, a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why is she not in Driftmark? Why are there no guards on the dragon pit? If she's not going to kill the Greens, why does she pop out, slaughter a bunch of innocent people in the process? I can come up with ways to kind of square it up, and ways I think that the show, if I was running the show, kind of how I would handle it. I don't know if they will. I think they'll probably just kind of gloss right past it and not really, try to square those things up. So I think we're just going to be left with our own headcanon to kind of square up some of the logical, the reasoning behind all the decision making, and why she's here, why there were no guards, why she broke through. I think they're largely just going to leave that up to the audience to come up with their own justification for those kind of things. But those weren't the strongest. Usually they're pretty good about making the motivations of the characters and the decision making of the characters make pretty good sense. And there's not a lot of times where I'm like, well, hold on, why is there no one here? Like, why would she do this? Why would he do this? I don't have a lot of those moments in the show. This was one of the few ones with her character in this episode. But yeah, she's starting to realize that the king is dead, and they go and they lock up all the servants, and you have old Creepy Strong. He's spying on him, and he is a super creep this episode. He got that big foot fetish, and he's a super creepy dude. I like what they're doing with him, because in the book, he's just kind of a quiet guy behind the scenes, calculating, but you don't understand what his motivations are, what he's getting out of his decisions, why he does what he does. And this show, like, they're also not explaining kind of why he's doing what he's doing, other than he's just super freaking creepy, and he doesn't seem to have strong loyalties to anybody. Like, I mean, when he's talking to Otto, he's like, hey, there's no reason I can't, sell you, you can't utilize the information that she's giving to me. I've been meeting with her for all this time. No reason that can't benefit you. And so he's willing to sell out anybody. And it's like his motivations almost entirely seem to be about what benefits him, what is in his interest. And he's willing to jump back and forth from people, work behind anybody's back if it's to his benefit. And it's largely a kind of a narcissistic and he's very focused in on himself and what benefits him. And then you get this scene with Kristen Cole and her, and you can see that she's kind of using him and in a different way than Rhaenyra uses Kristen Cole. She's she's not sleeping with him. She's using him, and that she restored his honor, and I understand you're loyal to me, and she's playing up those kind of emotions in him. She's manipulating him through his desire to restore his honor, and like you're loyal to me is not only are you able to push back against Rhaenyra who scorned you, but by doing what I want, you're kind of in a somewhat way restoring your honor by helping my family displace Rhaenyra. And so it's kind of a weird manipulation of his honor, and he seems like he might have a thing for her. But this is some dude that's been messed up in the head. Like he's got worked by these two women, and it's warped him. And so when you look at his decision making, if you're heavy on Team Rhaenyra or Team Alicent, your opinions on him are gonna swing one way or another. My more opinion on him is like this dude's getting run through the ringer. He's not doing like completely noble or good things. He's doing some very bad things, and he's very vindictive and angry, and so there you have those emotions at play and jealousy, and so he's a very flawed character. But I don't think like he's just completely evil or a bad person. I think he's just he's a dude that's got taken through the ringer, and he's getting run over by two very powerful women, and he's not handling it well. He's not. He's definitely not handling that Lord Commander is gives you. He's been in the position between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and obviously you can see where he handled it much better. Kristen Cole, though, let his emotions get the better of him, and he fell in love with Rhaenyra. Now, through jealousy, he might even have a thing for Alicent now. Can't really tell, but this is a guy. It's more of a complex character than just kind of a one note. Oh, he's evil. He's bad. He's doing or he's good. Rhaenyra screwed him. She's all bad. It's a much more complex character than that. I like his character. I like what the way they're handling Kristen Cole, because this is kind of how I envisioned him from the book. When I read the book, I envisioned him as kind of that his relationship with Rhaenyra and that break kind of put him on a path where a vindictive path, and he's not like a total evil guy. He seemed to just all my loyalty is gonna be to this family, and I'm gonna do what I gotta do to help them out, is kind of the way he seems, and he's willing to do some dirty shit, obviously. And so Aemond and Kristen Cole go looking for old Aegon the Second, King Aegon. Pretty sweet dude. He's got a lot of really good qualities. I think everybody's pretty much the entire audience is Team Aegon the Second. I think that's clear. Everybody loves him. Everybody is like, he should be the king. He's done nothing wrong. He's a really good character, and everybody loves him, and clearly doesn't want Rhaenyra to take the throne over him. That's obviously the position everybody holds on Aegon. He's a really good dude, really good dude. But yeah, they're looking for him in the brothels, and they find out he's got a little different taste. He's not just going to the brothels anymore. He's gone down even a more darker and depraved path. He's just going to the brothels is not enough to satiate him anymore. He's a debaucherous dude. And so they can't find him at the brothel that Aemond had frequented with him before. And so they, through the years, Aemond had one picture of his brother, and Aegon has even gone further into depravity than that. And so We're we're seeing this kind of search show the family as they're the brotherly dynamic between them. It kind of gives a good contrast. Whereas you get Amond, he's not like a clear good guy either. He's got a lot of darkness in him, and but he is also much more duty bound, family oriented. He realizes there's standards that they have to abide by and live up to, whereas Aegon is just going off the rails. And then we get, Otto putting everybody in their place, making them choose their loyalties. A few people resist, but most people bend the knee, which, I mean, you don't really have much of a choice. If you're put in a position where it's like bend the knee or die, and then the alternative is like if Rhaenyra comes into power and you bent the knee, and she's gonna come at you and be like, if you bent the knee, you betrayed me, that's treason, you die. Like, they're putting a awful position between these two families. So it's hard to blame anybody who's bending the knee. You're probably, whoever is standing in front of you, you're gonna bend the knee because the threat, no matter who it is going to be or else. So old boy over here, who ended up bending the knee for a second there, try to appease them. He obviously goes and tries to warn Rhaenyra after the fact, tries to get out of town. I mean, that just kind of shows the position they're in. Even if you do have some loyalty to Rhaenyra and you don't want to break your oath. I mean, the alternative to breaking your oath is death. So it's not really a choice in that situation. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you get a little bit of the twin brothers coming in here. What a bunch of bastards in Flea Bottom. They're taking these little kids, 10 years old, filing their teeth down, having them grow out their nails, and just putting them in the pit to beat each other to death, beat each other senseless at least. And then you see like the Aegon's bastard just sitting over there in the corner. And that gives a contrast versus what we've seen in other situations where we've seen like Robert's bastards. They're not necessarily taken care of and living like a great life, but you see like his bastard that was put with the smith to become apprentice to a blacksmith who was put in a position where he could have a life. And what was his name? Gendry. And they're going through the Hand of the King, Aaron at the time. He was going through taking care of Robert's bastards. Otto is not doing that for Aegon. He's not going through paying close attention to what is going on in Aegon's life and the kids that he's pumping out there. They're not taking care of those kids, making sure that there's some kind of moral decency in their family. They're really just letting him do what he does, and they're not even trying to clean up the mess, really, which is is a mark against their character, significant mark against their character. Otto is not, clearly he's not a good guy. I think even a Tywin Lannister, he's more gangster, so he might have been willing to off the kids to get them out of the picture, but more than likely he would have just got them out of the way and put them in a position where they're not going to be, at least they're not going to be a mark against the family, that you see a clear little Targaryen bastard in these pits just being left alone. That's detracting against your family too. Like the brand, you would want the Targaryen brand to be like, even our bastards are going to be in positions where you don't mess with them. Like, you would want that kind of brand where it's like everybody would fear to mess with the Targaryens, even the Targaryen bastards you wouldn't want to mess with. You would think that's kind of the mentality you would want to have in a family. I think Tywin would have likely been more along those lines, or at least got them out of the picture. Just leaving a little kid, a little Targaryen bastard sitting in these pits, that's like that's a mark making your family look weak and immoral, and it would push people against you. Like the people in Flea Bottom, the average person, anyone seeing that, they're going to question your character, and so it would cause problems for your family. So it's just bad decision making all around. I mean, you either, if you're a gangster, you get rid of the kid. If you got some compassion, put that kid in a position where at least in his life as a bastard, that he's put in a position of some prominence, not like, doesn't have like a Gendry put with the Smith, where he's going to be in a position where he can have a good life, and that you at least put him in a position where people aren't going to mess with him because of who he is. Like, even a Targaryen bastard should mean something, and to them it's means nothing. So it's a pretty grotesque scene, and you can see that, like, they use it where it kind of puts one of the brothers, where he starts to say, "Man, this isn't right. How are we supporting Aegon?" And he's obviously a terrible person, and it's worse than just this. Like, it's been years of this, that they've been kind of turning a blind eye to it. But now that you're talking about putting him in a position of power, that's kind of putting your back against the wall, where you got to make a decision. Obviously, one of the brothers sticks with Aegon, but the other brother goes and takes off, and so it causes a split with this family. And you have Aemond here, kind of asserting the fact that he wouldn't mind having a little authority over the kingdom. He is not opposed to being the king over Aegon. If Aegon disappeared, he's not opposed to taking that spot. Which, if you're that family, that's who you would want. You would want him. You would hope that Aemond would be the guy you could put on the throne versus Aegon. Aemond's pretty brutal, and if you're trying to take the throne from Rhaenyra, you probably want the brutal one instead of this lech who's just going around hanging out in brothels and just being depraved and kind of being a weak and destructive. He's just not a good person to have taken the throne. Not with what needs to be done. You could have he could change. You could put him in this position of power, and he could change him, and maybe maneuver him where he starts taking more responsibility, and being more serious with his position, being less flippant, and being woe is me and that kind of stuff, and that woe is me leading him down a destructive path. Maybe the position of king will flip a switch in him. But if you're just talking about practicality, you would probably rather have Aemond in that position than Aegon. He seems much more suited to be a ruthless king than Aegon. And then so we find out, like, the White Worm offers information on Aegon. She's kind of tucked him away, and then you have this meeting, like I've already talked about, where he offers his services to Otto, and there's no reason those hours could not in the end benefit you. So he's a duplicitous, creepy dude. And then you got this little scene, a little bit of sad end. You get your last look at Viserys as they're wrapping him up, covering up that beautiful face. Like, man, just can you believe they're covering up that pretty, pretty face? He looked so good in the end. He's one of those guys that he aged very gracefully, very gracefully. But yeah, you have the end there, and you could see they did a good job with her, because you could easily lean into, because he, when he lies to her, and she kind of about Rhaenyra, when Rhaenyra slept with Kristen Cole, when she finds out that Rhaenyra lied and Viserys lied, and they're kind of covering it up, that changed the dynamic in their relationship. And she's conflicted in their relationship in the remaining episodes, but you can still see that she does care about him. You see it in this scene. You see it in the throne room when at first her reaction to when he comes into the throne room is like, ah, shit. He's upsetting her plans. But then when you see her face watching, she obviously feels bad watching him walk down in pain. She cares, obviously cares about him. It's not, the actress did a really good job in showing the dynamic of that relationship where all the conflicted emotions that she has with Viserys. I really liked. I really like her performance as Alicent. It's good. She's complex. She's naive. She's she's got some morality to her. She's caring, but she loves her kids. She's got that motherly side, but then she's just slowly but surely allowing more and more corruption to take hold. Then you have this meeting where she tries to your son got cuckolded. Uh, but she tries to get her on her side, and this is kind of a position where this is where I didn't really think think they should have just had her out of the on Driftwood or on Dragonstone, one of the two. I don't think she needed to be in this episode. I don't think it helped or made a lot of sense because look, she's not her daughters are married to Jace and Luke. She's not going to be in a position where she's going to betray her family. I mean, betraying Rhaenyra is betraying her own family and their own positions, and she would have to untangle all those knots. It's just she's already made her bed. She made her bed last episode when she married. She betrothed her kids to Jace and Lucerys. That's it. She's done on that. Her side is chosen by her actions last episode. You didn't have to have an episode where she's reaffirming those decisions. I mean, it would be very difficult to unwind at this point. And she doesn't have her kids. Her kids aren't with her right now. So, like, if she betrays Rhaenyra while her kids are with Rhaenyra, that's going to cause major problems for her. So it's a very tough position that she's in. There, she can't really back out now. She doesn't have the leverage to back out. But that's kind of the way they're going with it. I didn't think like it's like awful writing or it's just terrible what they did. I just don't think it was. I don't think it improved the episode having her in it, and it raised more questions and questions on her reasoning and the internal logic of the show. It just brought up unnecessary things that I didn't think were needed. But obviously, I think one of their concerns was they wanted some kind of grab your attention moment, which obviously it did. I mean, you could see people talking about that scene, and they're talking about her. My position is probably the minority position on her in this episode. A lot of people talking about it loved her in this episode, and they loved that moment. So it's not like my way is the right way, their way is the wrong way. Their way attracted a lot of people. A lot of people loved it. It's just for someone who kind of analyzes shows the way I do. I'm not. I don't need the spectacle. I don't need that. I want to see that throughout the season. I don't need it in this particular episode. I didn't need them to make it more flashy. I think the story that they could have told as far as the Ascension, I don't think you needed a big spectacle scene added to it. But that's the route they went, and plenty of people liked it. So it's to each their own. It's not that big of a deal. But if I had my way, I would have went a different route. But yeah, what would happen after that? What did we get? Is this the meeting between Otto and yeah? I didn't really like this scene. This was probably the only scene where I was like, I don't know. I didn't like his. I didn't like her like the idea. I'm glad they went the route of they sent Strong after her, but Otto should have sent Strong after her. As soon as you get Aegon back, like at that point when she threatens the king and she's like, "We have this kind of power," like she's got to go at that point. You're if you're Otto, you're not going to leave her after making a threat against your family. You're gonna maybe you accept it in that moment and you play the game to get Aegon. But once you have Aegon, she's got to go. You go and eliminate her immediately, and you try to eliminate her spies, and then you're stomping out any kind of resistance at that point. Then you would lean on Strong to kind of be your guy that's listening in the cracks, find out anybody who's kind of working with her, and we're going to eliminate her entire network, or at least decapitate it enough where it's not a threat anymore. Because we cannot have someone in Flea Bottom that has this kind of power where she could take the king and hide him from us. At that point, she's got to go. I'm glad that they went the route of eliminating. I can't. I have to watch it again in full, but I think they show that building that they were showing that was on fire. I believe that was to show that they went after her, and which was necessary. I mean, you have to, but they should. It should have been Otto's decision, and the way that they approached it, it was almost like Otto wasn't going to do anything about it, and he was just going to leave her there, and she made herself too big of a threat. Using her as like if she's in a position where she's useful to you as information, as someone who can provide you with information. Maybe she tucked him away, and she lets Otto know where he is. He gives her, she makes a negotiation for it to get something out of it. That's fine. It's the threat that is, once you make that threat, you have to. She's too big of a problem. She made herself into, instead of a useless or a useful ally, a useful person in the streets who can get information for you, kind of a Viserys type of guy, or a strong Larry Strong type of guy, but in the in the gutters. Now she's a threat. She's literally threatening you. If you don't do what I want, there will be repercussions. You can't let that go. This episode solidifies it for me. Greens are the 100% aggressors in this debacle. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're committing treason. So that's the kickoff point. Now, there's complexity to it though, because the Greens are not in a position where it's not like if they just let Rhaenyra take the throne that they're just gonna we just go about our lives. They're a massive threat to Rhaenyra because you have the problem is Viserys did not strengthen Rhaenyra's position to the throne so much that there was no ability for her to be threatened. There's too many people that would benefit with Aegon taking the throne now at this point. So if she's taking the throne and there's this many powerful people with a lot of men, a lot of armies, a lot of money that would benefit with Aegon taking the throne, she can't just leave that and not address that issue when she takes the throne. So they're in a position where if they just let her win, she's probably going to take them out, or Daemon is going to take them out at least one by one. If they don't do it just openly, or, and accuse them of some kind of treachery and make some kind of accusation, say they killed the king or something like that to get rid of them, Daemon's probably going to go and start taking care of problems one by one and eliminating that family because they're too big of a threat at this point, given how many powerful people would benefit with Aegon taking the throne. So it's Viserys did not do a good enough job of solidifying Rhaenyra's power to prevent this. This was going to happen either way. Even if Rhaenyra was in the position of power, Rhaenyra would have been in a position where she would have had to have taken care of the problem of the Greens. And so they kind of screwed each other. They are, they're kind of both screwed, and so it's one of those situations where it seems like it was kind of inevitable. But the way things played out, they are committing treason. They're striking the first blow here, and they've been maneuvering. And if they were going to, you can't absolve them of blame. The other route that they could have went is over these years is solidifying Rhaenyra's claim through them. They could have been her strongest backers and looked for ways to ingratiate themselves with her and put Aegon and Aemond and Darren and Helena. They could have positioned them in where they were marrying to Rhaenyra's kids, those kind of things, where making them so that they're not a threat to her throne and that people can't use them to, other lords of the realm are not going to be able to use them to try to usurp power from her. They could have used their family to strengthen Rhaenyra's family. That could have been the path that they went and been her biggest loyalists. Obviously, that's not what they wanted. They wanted the power. Otto obviously wants the power. So yeah, they have a large part to play. A large part of the blame for what happens is on them. But also Rhaenyra played it stupid, like just hanging out in Dragonstone, raising her family, and just allowing Alicent to solidify more and more and more power. She needed to be in the game, and she wasn't, or she needed to be going around the realm. Over these years, she should have been traveling all around the realm, strengthening her claim, getting people behind her, making alliances, and she wasn't. She's not a good she's not a good ruler. I mean, she's not doing things that you would need to do. Like, I mean, obviously, if people were watching the show or you're reading the book, you can see what needed to be done, and she's not doing that. She's not doing that at all. So yeah, it's a major problem. But yeah, so they find Aegon, who's just doesn't want the crown. Get a little fight scene here, and you get the kind of split between the brothers, and you get Aegon being kind of a big old baby. He does not want that throne, doesn't want that power, which he's right. He shouldn't have that power. He's a terrible person. He's a horrible choice. Be better to go send him. It would have been better put him on a boat. But again, you can't do that. If you're not gonna give him the throne, you got to take him out and give it to Aemond. But yeah, so there's a couple things also I'll mention. The two of the scenes that they left out. One in the books, they make Strong is in that meeting. The Clubfoot, he is in that meeting with them, and he doesn't talk throughout the meeting. But then once everything's kind of decided that they're going to usurp the throne, they make a blood oath. He makes everybody cut their hand, and except for Alicent because she's a woman, she didn't have to do it. So, but they all the men have to cut their hands and shake hands and make a blood oath with each other, a blood pact that they're in it for Aegon, that they're fully in, and so that scene is cut out, and then also Kristen Cole, he's called the Kingmaker in the show. The nickname is going to become from him putting the crown on his head. In the book, part of it is also that he talks to Aegon, and they already did this scene, but they did it with Alicent, where he explains the way he gets they get Aegon to kind of accept becoming king because he doesn't want to take Rhaenyra's spot. He doesn't want to usurp his half sister. The way that they get him to realize that he has to do it is like, if you don't, we're all dead. She's gonna kill your entire you. She's gonna kill your wife. She's gonna kill your kids. She's gonna kill your mom. She's gonna kill your brothers. So everybody is going to die if you don't take the crown. And Kristen Cole has that conversation with him at this point in the book. They did that scene with Alicent, having that conversation with him, and then he's kind of pushed into it in this scene, but they took that out from Kristen Cole. But that's a difference between the book and the show. Those two scenes are taken out. It's not that big a deal. I would have put in the blood oath scene, but it was already a busy episode, so I can understand why they pulled those out. But that's also why I think again I would have made this. I would have made this 2 episodes. I would have split this up, and you could add in those scenes. You can flesh it out. You can make her Rhaenys decision making make a little bit more sense. Explain why she's still there, why she's not in Driftmark. What happened when she went into there should have been guards under at the dragon pit. How did she get past them? Maybe you show the dragon coming to her and taking out the guards. That would easily explain it, but you could have put that in there. But they wanted the surprise of her, bursting out. But also have some kind of, I guess, the explanation for why she goes and kills all those innocent people and doesn't take out the Greens. You can add that explanation in the next episode, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in there. She can go and explain her reasoning. Man, stop blowing me up. She can go ahead and have that reasoning in the next episode. That didn't have to be here, and you can come up with why. I'm not sure, and we'll see whether they come up with any reasoning at all, but it didn't necessarily have to be in this episode. But I would have split it up into 2 episodes so you could so it didn't feel so rushed. And so you have Alicent and Otto, kind of their differences, and I like her position where she's like, basically I'm just a pawn on the board, and he's like, no, he's like, I'm a piece on the board. He's like, yeah, but you're the queen. The piece I made you is the queen. And so you can understand his side of the situation. And he's like, yeah, I, forced you into a situation, but from his perspective, he's like, I forced you into taking the most powerful position you could possibly achieve for yourself. I put you in the best. It's like I gave you I forced you into taking a job, but I forced you into taking a job that made you a billionaire. So, I was doing it for you. It's not like I was just screwing you over for my own benefit. She benefits as much or more than he does. Her kids benefit as much or more than he does. It's not just that he's doing this just for his own benefit. He's not taking the throne. He didn't, marry Rhaenyra or something like that. It was he put his daughter in those positions and her kids. He's doing it. It's clearly he's doing this for his family rather than just his own benefit. And from her perspective, yeah, screw this dude. Like you're forced to marry some guy that's falling apart and who's much older than you. And and not only that, you're put in a position where now your life's in danger. You're in this very precarious position where you're in a massive fight for power with people who have dragons and a lot of dragons. So yeah, I can understand where both of them are coming from, and they're both doing a phenomenal job of acting. They bring these characters to life. And again, I talked about it when I talked about the previous episode in the previous stream. Some people will take Otto and make him out to be like Tywin Lannister, and he's clearly not. I mean, he's a poor man's Tywin Lannister. He's a wannabe Tywin Lannister. He's got some calculating sides to him. He's intelligent, makes a lot of good decisions, but he also makes a lot of mistakes. And he has not solidified his power enough to where he can't just be overruled by his own daughter, and that she's messing up his plans. Like there is no way, if this is Tywin Lannister, there's no way that they're making peace offerings to Rhaenyra. He would have already had it in place that the day the king dies, she's gone. And it wouldn't have mattered what Alicent said or anybody else said. It would have just been done and taken care of. He would have already had that in play as soon as that information came out. There wouldn't have had to been like, okay, now we make plans. It would have already been in place. They made some plans as far as like usurping the throne, but not with dealing with her. Like Tywin Lannister would have had like faceless men. Like, hey, second she's, the second they're gone, that family needs to go. He would have had that situation taken care of. Oh, and then we got old creepy dude, which she took that when she took her like shoes off or whatever and just like put her feet up. I was like, oh, is this guy gonna have a foot fetish? And then like you could see like when he starts looking, I was like, yep. And then the old holds back for give me take them stockings off too. Like, yeah, what a super creep. And then she sits there and lets him jerk it to her feet while she's just sitting there looking away. And he's just super pervin, jerking it. Ah, what a creepy scene. Part of what I love about this show is the amount of emotions that I feel watching it. Like when you see the scene in the pit and you see what those kids are being put through and the kind of the it pains you to see something like that, see the kids put through that and the disgust you see with it. And then you have like a creep factor here. Then you have like all the emotions you go through in episode 8. Like this is not a show that you watch and you don't feel anything watching it. You're definitely is bringing out emotions out of you the whole time. It's really does a really good job. Then yeah, you got the kind of just the scene where they're all staring out into space as night's going on. And this was where obviously that's got to be her little spot where she's chilling, where that they burned down. I'll have to watch it again to make sure, but because I haven't been paying attention to what the scenery of her little hideout is, so I assume that's what it is, though. I mean, if one of you knows, it's watching. Like, if one of you guys knows if that's for sure that spot, let me know. But I'm fairly certain that's what that is. But yeah, and then so he goes and breaks out Rhaenys, and then this is where we get they get separated. She kind of gets pushed into the meeting. You get kind of why Aegon's the way he is. He feels neglected. He's petulant about the fact that his dad, didn't he's the firstborn son to Viserys. Anybody else in that position in the realm would be the heir to the either the castle or in this position heir to the throne. And the fact that he's leaving it for Rhaenyra and you coming from his perspective, he's seen Rhaenyra as kind of like, having bastard after bastard after bastard, kind of spitting in the face of tradition and the family. And Viserys is just ignoring that and still leaving her to take the throne. And you could see why he would feel like his dad doesn't give a shit about him. And you could see how that relationship put him down this kind of path where, he's become this destructive force and this self-loathing and all those kind of things. You could kind of see what would have led him down this path. So, I mean, from a character perspective, it's understandable for why he's here. It doesn't make you feel a lot of sympathy for the guy. The guy's a piece of shit. But it makes it more understandable for what led him down this path. And a lot of these kids, they get they're put in this position between the two warring sides, and the animosity and the positions for the fighting for power. That's gonna warp the kids' minds, and it's pitting them against each other and causing problems. So it's just it's a big old mess that needed to be addressed by Viserys in a more definitive way, and he kind of just let it fester and build and build and build. That's like his clear mistake was not nipping this in the bud and solidifying the power of Rhaenyra, or making Aegon the heir and then solidifying his power. He could just leaving them and hoping that they're gonna all get along was just stupid. Great character though. Loved the portrayal of Viserys, but that was definitely a massive mistake. And then so clearly the implication here is that Aegon is aware of the prince that was promised in that story. And so him getting this dagger is just kind of it is basically she's saying like you're the prince that was promised, and it's I think this is going to be utilized as kind of a like flipping that switch in and where he does start to take his role more seriously, and you kind of see that when everybody's cheering his name and he's holding up the sword where he's like, yeah, all right, let's fucking do this. And so yeah, you could see he's going to be you could see that he's probably going to take things more seriously and not be as just he's not going to be like Joffrey 2.0. That there is going to be a more dynamic role than that. She calls him an imbecile. She is. He's a stupid dude. He's kind of a piece of shit, but not quite Joffrey piece of shit level. This was a cool scene, like, and I love what this show has done, like with the number of extras that they get in, the small details. This scene, like the inside of this building, like just from a visual standpoint, like they are finding some fantastic sets. Like I don't know how much of this is CGI or what, but man, it looks freaking awesome. And the amount of extras that they get in, they give a shit about the details, to the armor that the people are wearing, to the outfits that the people are wearing, all those kind of little details. They pay very close attention to them and make sure that it looks as good as possible. And that's why when there are scenes that pull you out of that immersion, like that, it's much more notable on this show than others, because others, a show that's not as well done, it happens a lot that you get pulled out of, to the point where you can be, so many shows you can watch and you'll be tempted to just pull out your phone and start looking up stuff while you're watching it. That's how much you get pulled out of those shows. This show, I get immersed in it and I almost never get pulled out. So when I do, they stand out more. And so like when Rhaenyra goes down there and it's like, hold on, so they're just saying she's going to just be able to get to her dragon and no one's going to be there. It's like, we'll see what they show. And then they don't show anything as far as the guards. That kind of stuff pulls me out more so in this show because of how good it is. When you look at this scene and how good it is and how close they paid attention to all the details and how many extras they brought in to make the scene more impactful. They paid so close attention to all those details. So it's like when they miss some of the other details or they don't explain them, it stands out. But man, this scene looked good though. Everything leading up to the end I thought was phenomenal. Like this shit was impactful. And being given the crown, the crowd getting behind him, Aemon's, face, like the face of Helena, his mom with that proud look, and then Aegon kind of looking at everybody and realizing like, okay, all right, now I'm in charge. And not having the look of someone who's like, all right, now I'm in charge. Now you guys are all gonna do whatever I want, in like a more petulant, evil look. More as like, finally, I'm in a position where like I'm getting some respect, and you can see it has more of it's more meaningful to him than kind of like a not really evil, like some kind of evil villain type of a situation. It's a more meaningful impact. It obviously impacts him significantly, seeing everybody standing behind him, putting the crown on him, all the crowd getting behind him. That it has a more meaningful impact to him personally than what you would see from just like some evil villain. Yeah, and everybody just cheering Aegon. Look at that. Ah, proud mom. My proud little rapist. Yeah. And then all hell breaks loose. Now, if I'm stripping out like if I'm not focusing in on just the problems I have, like how are there no guards on the dragon pit? Like especially when there's that many people in that room, you would think it would be heavily guarded at that moment. So there's no one there, so she can just walk in, and there's no explanation like how she gets to her dragon. Like I can come up with headcanon, like okay, the dragon, they don't have anybody guards right at that door, but once you go down, there's guards. But I could come up with headcanon where the dragon comes to her and eats the guards, or something along those lines. And so I can come up with headcanon to explain how she gets to her dragon, but then like bursting through here, I would have to come up with my own headcanon for the reasons. I can do that. Hopefully the show explicitly gives reasoning behind it, because there's too many questions behind it to not have some kind of explicit information for her reasoning behind breaking into there instead of just flying out and disappearing. Why she would notify, let them know she's doing that, and break in there and threatening them and killing all those innocent people. Like you would hope that they would come up with an explanation given all of those things. But if they don't, I can come up with my own head canon for why she does it all, assuming they don't contradict any of it in the next episode, any of the reasoning I would have for it. But if you leave all those issues aside, it looks freaking awesome. So I can see why people, when they're watching it and they're seeing the spectacle of it, that they're loving it, because it looks fantastic. And it's such a, like, what a crazy situation that would be. Just a dragon showing up in the middle of all these people, just smashing everybody around him, just the sheer panic from the crowd trying to get out the doors. And then what do you do in that situation? Like when you're the rest of these people, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to fight the dragon? Like, I mean, it's on top of you. It's too big. Just spinning around, it's gonna wipe you out just with its tail. If it starts lighting things on fire, you're all toast. There's no way to defend yourself in this moment. You're just completely at the mercy of Rainey's in this situation, and it would be intense. And so, they're obviously showing her in this situation, kind of one of those, I'm a bad bitch moments, and in isolation, yeah, she is. And if they can come up with some kind of reasoning to justify it, I'll have more appreciation for this scene than I do currently at the moment. Currently, I think they could have done without it. But again, like I said, most people loved it, and it looks great. So it's more of a nit that I'm picking at than like a major flaw in the show or something. But yeah, and then they're trying to close the door. Otto's sitting there like, "Whoa, what are you doing? You're gonna lock us in here with a dragon and give her no way out of here other than to kill everybody?" It's like, no, keep those doors open. Let her go. And then this scene's intense to watch. Like just the dragon in her face screaming. Like, man, the CGI on this is so great. Like I never, when I'm watching this and the dragons come on, it's like I'm watching a dragon. I don't like, it doesn't throw me out where I'm sitting there thinking like, it's like, oh, so that's a CGI version of a dragon, of what a dragon would be. It just looks like she's on the back of this massive, dangerous beast. Freaking great. Looks amazing. And then yeah, she gives the little head nod, like That's where I take the head nod that Rainey's gives to Allison. What I take that as is that her sitting there saying like, "Look, if we go down this path and we go to war, this is the consequences. This is how dangerous dragons are. This is how powerful dragons are. I could have ended your entire line right here. I could have ended the reign on day one right here. If we go down this path, it's going to lead to destruction." So if they have her in the next episode and she's preaching peace, and we need to find some kind of way to either to offer peaceful terms for them, or to offer terms that would be acceptable for us where we don't take the throne. I think the way they could do it, especially with her character in the previous episodes, that she's accepted not being the queen. If she's sitting there going to Rhaenyra and saying, "Look, just give it up, give the crown to Aegon, accept that the throne is, that the kingdom is not going to accept you taking the crown. Let's just make peace." They saw the threat with my dragon. They understand what the consequences of war will mean. They're not going to wage war with us if we offer terms of kind of a peaceful surrender and acceptance of Aegon taking the throne. That's the approach I would have with Rhaenys, and I think that's the approach that makes sense given the backstory and the discussions that she's had. That would make the most sense, I think, for her character. And if they do that, it'll flip my opinion of this scene, and I will appreciate the scene much more. I'll still have an issue with her just being able to get to her dragon and where the guards are at, but like I said, I can come up with headcanon. Her dragon ate the guards, so there, we solved that. But overall, I thought it was a good episode. It could be improved depending on what happens in the finale, and but it's certainly not a bad episode. And the acting, the directing, cinematography, all those kind of things, they're pretty on point. My only issue is like the logical consistency. The reasoning is not made clear through the writing on a couple of places. But overall, I thought it was great. I cannot wait until this finale. Like, I wasn't sure what they were going to do this episode. I know where they're going with the next episode, and I thought that they might combine this episode and the next episode. I thought these two events might have been put together, and then they would have another event for the finale. But clearly, they wanted to focus in on him coming into power this episode and taking the throne, and then the next event I'm really looking forward to, because there's some cool shit that's going to happen in this next episode. I don't know how much they're going to go into. They might even the second event that I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't read the books, but there's a second event that I'm really curious for them to show. They might do both of those in the finale, but we're at least getting one of them, and I know that 100%. And so, I imagine that the finale's probably gonna be up there with top 2-3 favorite episodes. It's gonna be hard to top episode 8. That was like such an impactful episode that all the episodes leading up to it with Viserys, it had such a huge payoff that it's going to be hard to live up to that episode, to beat it. But I bet you it's going to be in that vein of like episode 3 and 5 and 6. I mean, there's so many good episodes. I think it's going to be a top tier episode. I think it's going to be a talked about episode. I think people are going to be pumped for the end of this season, and they're going to be ready for season 2. And man, this show is just putting up massive audience numbers. I'm really curious what the numbers are going to be when they come out next week. Nielsen drops their reports on Wednesdays or Thursdays. Really curious what they're going to do, what they're going to be for House of the Dragon, where it's going to be at, because it's been kind of gotten to the point where just the streaming is equal with Rings of Power, where Rings of Power at. But Rings of Power, all of its views are coming from streaming. House of the Dragon, a third of its views are coming from TV and other methods. So the House of the Dragon has been beating Rings of Power and draw since episode one, but Rings of Power episode retention is dropping. They're losing viewers, with more scenes. So they've released the data. I think on the first four episodes for Rings of Power, maybe the first three episodes for House of the Dragons, maybe the first four. I can't remember, but I'm really curious what the trend's going to be, and if the Rings of Power continued to shed audience, and if House of the Dragon grew after that episode where we had Damon and his pure badass moment when he goes against that entire army, and all the dragon fighting and all that kind of stuff on the stepstones, those wars. I think that episode probably bumped the numbers up a bit. Except there was an episode that came out, on a holiday weekend. So we'll see. I'm curious to see what the numbers are, but I bet you this show by the end of the season, the numbers are going to be massive. Like it's clearly every episode when it drops, it's immediately trending number one. There's multiple different hashtags, and it's not people going like, I love this, I hate this, it's a great show, it's a stupid show. It's people debating and talking about the episode, the decisions, kind of like, I'm talking about here with Rainey's and the kind of the decision making of the writers, and we're kind of going through and talking about what her possible motivations are, talking about Clubfoot's motivations, Allison's, Otto's. That's what all the discussion is about the characters. And there's some discussion about like writing choices, those kind of things, but there's a lot of debate and a lot of discussion, and it's overwhelmingly positive feedback for the show. And it's easily the most talked about show. It's easily the biggest show, and I think it's easily the best show on TV right now. I just think it's superior television writing than most things. Like my top tier shows that I like right now are The Boys, Stranger Things, and this. And I haven't seen the last season of Better Call Saul, but that's another top tier show. But I would put this in the vein of like the seasons. I saw the first 3 or 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. That was top tier television. Deadwood, Rome, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. This, I think those are shows that are top tier, where it's like they're at a different level when you watch them, and audiences, when they turn on these shows, they get engrossed in them, and it's good to see. It's good to have at least one fantasy show that is just overwhelmingly positive and showing the kind of audiences that fantasy shows can bring in. It's definitely, because man, if this show was not out, or if this show bombed, if this show bombed and Rings of Power got the kind of reception that it got, oh man, that would have been such a heavy hit for fantasy shows in the future of fantasy shows. Would have been a big hit, because there's no way that Rings of Power is bringing in the kind of audience to justify, $1 billion price tag. They're just not. And the feedback on it, you're seeing the reaction from the showrunners, and you're seeing all the backpedaling and the kind of assurances like, wait, you won't believe, in season 2 we're gonna have like a 2-episode battle, and we're gonna follow it's gonna be a canonical show where we're gonna follow the lore, and this is gonna be a season where people are gonna be like, this is actually the show I wanted in season 1, and now I'm finally getting it in season 2. So they're already doing like some damage control on it, and that's because they lost the audience. They lost the significant. They have, there's people that love the show. I mean, and if they didn't have the kind of budget that they have, they would be fine. If they spent, the kind of money that like maybe Wheel of Time spent, or even less, I think they'd be fine. I think they have enough of an audience to justify that. But the kind of budget they spent, it needed to be a global phenomenon, and it is not that at all. I mean, if anything, the bigger audience is the people who don't like it and mock it and make fun of it, and that's a major problem. So they were doing some backpedaling in the press, but it's going to be 2.5 years before the next season comes out, and then by then people will it'll be years of people not even talking about the show, and then you're going to have to convince people to go back through to rewatch season one and remember what happened in that. And the odds of you getting a lot of people to do that and then jump into season two, it's not looking good. Not looking good for Rings of Power. So that would have been a big blow if House of the Dragon sucked and was not a top tier show. That would have been a massive blow to the future of fantasy on television for the next 5 to 10 years. So thankfully, this show is knocking it out of the park with audiences. People love this show for the most part. Obviously, it's, any show there's going to be subjective opinions, and again, if you like Rings of Power, like Rings of Power. You don't need me to like it for you to enjoy it. If you like it, who gives a shit? Love it unapologetically. If people don't agree with you, who gives a shit what they think? And it's the same way, like someone, when I commented, I love this show, someone was like, are we watching the same show? And it's like, dude, you don't have to like it. I'm okay if you don't like this show. Like, you don't have to like House of the Dragon. It doesn't bother me. I don't know why why you want to jump on my page when I'm praising it to come and let me know that you don't like it, but whatever. I don't care if this didn't have the massive audience, it didn't have the buzz, if there were a lot of people who were criticizing it, would not change my opinion of it at all. I would still say it's the best show on television by a good margin. It is extremely well done, and I wouldn't care, and I don't care if people disagree with that opinion. Like I don't need other people to agree with me to enjoy something. And so if you enjoy Rings of Power, enjoy it unapologetically. Who gives a shit what other people think? But and also, if people criticize Rings of Power, so what? Not everybody's gonna like everything, and there people can. And I'm gonna if I like something, I'm gonna say I like it. If I dislike something, I'm not gonna hold my tongue on my channel or on my feed because it might upset someone else. Like, dude, go your own, go somewhere else if you don't, if it really upsets you that bad. If I don't like a show that you like, I'm not gonna hold my tongue and not express my own opinions because it might hurt someone's feelings. Fuck that. What kind of hell would that be? Where you gotta judge the temperature of everybody to decide whether you can say what you actually think. It's like, no, I'm just going to say what I think, and people can either agree with it or not, and that's I'm comfortable with you disagreeing with me. I'm comfortable with you agreeing with me. I have no problem if people want to hold the wrong opinion on things and they don't want to have the right opinion like me. I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, so I think again, I think it was a really good episode. I think House of the Dragon, it's knocking it out of the park. Can't wait for the next one. And then me and Tim, I'm really looking forward to when both of us can kind of sit down and just go through in detail, and similar to how we go through the Kingkiller Chronicles and how we pick it apart, talk about all the different scenes, talk about the source, kind of expand out into things that aren't discussed on the show as far as like the history and the lore. Really want to dive into it and fully explore this show. I love it so much. So I really want to kind of go through everything and analyze it in detail. So I'm looking forward to that once the show ends. Probably within a week or so after it ends, we'll probably be able to record something. I'm going to start getting into notes on episode 1, start going through it, taking my notes, figuring out what I want to talk about, going through, taking notes on Fire and Blood, kind of writing out, my thoughts on different things, so that I've read it a bunch of times, but it's once you start actually taking notes on things and you start writing stuff down, sticks in your head more clearly. So I got to go through all of those kind of things and do all the prep work to be ready to talk about the show. But then we'll do it through live streams. That way, if people want to join in and they want to talk, they want to shoot the shit, they can fire questions at us and we'll interact. It'll be a much more interactive show than what we do with King Cruella Chronicles, where it's just me and Tim record it and then post it up later. We'll do those. I think we'll do the House of Dragon rewatch. We'll do those live so that we can get some kind of back and forth, and people can ask questions, those kind of things, so we can really flesh things out. But yeah, I think that's kind of my coverage on this particular episode, and look forward to next week. And if I get a chance, I'll do a little live stream after that episode ends, give my thoughts on the season and the finale as well. But